Welcome to episode 2 of the Mike and Matt Show. Matt Weber here with my partner in crime, my partner Michael. How you doing today?
We came back.
We are back.
We decided to do it again.
Episode 2. And today we are featuring a special guest, Mr. Mark Callazzo. We're going to be bringing him in a few. I am super excited. How are you doing today, Mike?
I'm feeling pretty good. You know, it's episode 2. More than 2 people listened to episode 1. Yeah. That's positive momentum, if you ask me. But no, yeah, we're going to talk to Mark Callazzo today. It's shameless. He's part of Alpha. He's going to be here. It's okay. He has a lot to say. It's going to be good.
Mark is a character. So we'll get into that in a moment, but there is a lot to get to, everybody. So if you're listening right now, we are in the thick of it. This is March. People call it March Madness. I don't know if you know it. It's Pie Day. Mike, you know what Pie Day is?
Yeah. 3.14. It's also, I like to eat pies, pizza. You tell me if it's round and it tastes good, I'm all down for it.
Okay, well, happy Pie Day, everybody. But we are in the thick of it. March Madness. I don't know if you have your brackets filled out. March Madness is about to start. We have so much happening. You have NFL free agency. I'm a sports guy, so I'm going to quickly keep talking about sports really quick. We got the Masters coming up. WrestleMania's coming up. Also, Mike, by the way, 24-hour flip. Did you watch the episode this past weekend?
I did.
John Steingraber and Michelle, the John and Michelle show.
Hasbrook Heights.
Yeah, the Two Family. It was a wonderful episode. And we are very proud that we are actually part of that. Alpha Funding, we funded some of those projects on the 24-hour flip. It has been a great success so far.
That's my Saturday afternoons.
Yeah.
I get a little lunch. I sit with my wife. We watch it. Mm-hmm. It's a good time.
And if you do miss it on a Saturday, you can actually watch it the next day on Sunday mornings at 9 a.m.
I love it.
Also, we have awards season just happened this past weekend. Mike, did you watch the Oscars?
I did.
Yeah?
I like movies.
Did you enjoy that Hugh Grant interview with Ashley Graham? He didn't seem very amused.
Does he ever really seem ever amused?
I don't
think that guy smiles and laughs.
I know, but I've seen him. He seems like he
looks jolly. I just don't know that he laughs.
I think she just needed to work on her questioning a little bit. Maybe. She wasn't the best interviewer. Moving on, we also have a show that I am very, very happy and love. Ted Lasso's coming out. It should be on Apple coming out next week. Are you excited for Ted Lasso?
Love Ted Lasso. It is what we needed during the pandemic. It's the most feel-goodness of feel-goodery.
Yeah,
I don't know if any of that made sense, but I liked it and I said it.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then we are also, I'm a baseball guy. We're mid-spring training right now, so there is a lot happening. But specifically, we're here. This is a real estate investing podcast. So let's get back to that.
I was a little confused for a second about why I was here.
Oh, we're going to talk real estate today. Listen, we talk about all kinds of things. We may talk about later on food. Who knows? We don't know. I don't know.
Well, Mark's here, so we're definitely going to talk about food.
Oh my God, I love food so good. I haven't eaten today. My stomach. We should order food for the show today.
If you hear growling on the microphone, that is Matt's stomach.
Yeah. What we are quickly going to do is, obviously, we're going to make sure that moving forward with the show, we're going to kind of have a little bit of a segmented approach. What we're going to do is we're going to go over some of the new happenings in real estate, in the economy, in our world today. We have some exciting stuff that we're going to share in a moment here, but we're also then going to transition.
And those formats may change. We're going to keep going until we find something that really works, that we like, and we'll settle on something. Training wheels are still on. A lot has happened since the last time we did the podcast, but I think we have to address kind of the real scary stuff that's going on out there. We had a couple banks kind of collapse, fall apart, get taken over by the government.
Yeah, we need to talk about this.
So, I mean, this is a real estate podcast, and it's just part of the world that we live in, right? Like be worrying about whether or not you're going to be able to go to the bank and get your money. And that for the first time since 2008, we really saw that happen. I think if I'm not mistaken, it might have been Bear Stearns was the last time we really saw huge collapse in the banking industry. And, I don't think anybody saw this coming, especially with everything else that's going on, but we're here and, it's going on. So, but, I think it's important to understand kind of what happened. How does it affect you, everybody out there? And, is there more of this going to come? And the truth is, I don't think it affects regular, just kind of everyday people at the moment.
Yeah.
Maybe some people who invested, who had their money, who worked in the tech sector in Silicon Valley Bank, and some people had their money in more East Coast Bank and Signature Bank. But, banks are still safe. Your monies are still safe. The federal government came in and did what they're supposed to do, protect depositors. So I think, that's not as scary as it could be, but it is a scary thing.
So what exactly, for somebody who is maybe, not a financial wizard, someone who's super well versed, what exactly happened this past week when you said the banks, right?
So it's a classic run on the bank, right? So all the people who had deposits for reasons one or another, I don't want to get into why they did it because there's a lot of speculation over how all the different pieces happened, but basically all the people who had their money in the bank decided to show up online. Nobody really waits in bank lines anymore, but they decided to show up and say, I want all my money out. And the bank just, simply did not have enough money to give to all the depositors. And that happens for like a lot of different reasons. Banks take in our deposits and they invest our deposits. They do mortgages, they make loans, they buy different securities and investments. And what we had the problem was with Silicon Valley Bank is when all these depositors got spooked and wanted to go get their money, they didn't have enough money to pay everybody out.
So the bank did not have enough money to give. If somebody went and they wanted to withdraw their money from the bank, there wasn't enough money there?
Correct.
That's not a good thing.
No, and it shouldn't. These things shouldn't have happened. Banks are always going to invest your money. They just always are. That's how banks do it. Like when you take out a mortgage from Chase or Wells Fargo or wherever, they're using the deposits you put in that bank to make the mortgage. That's just banking, like how it works. The problem is for whatever reason, the bank made bad bets. They made bad investments. They did have a large crypto portfolio, and crypto has been really hit really hard in the last several months. And they couldn't sell off enough of their investments for profit to get enough liquidity to pay off all the depositors. And the government, when that happens, the government comes in and they take over, and shareholders of the bank are the big ones to lose out. So if you own stock in any of these banks, you're kind of left out to dry there. Yeah. But the most important thing was the government came in, made all the depositors whole. So they can come access all their money. That's just banking working the way it should. And I know there's a lot of scare right now that more of that's going to happen. And I think that's just a lot of fear mongering. Like, I think people are just afraid, like, is my money safe?
What else, Michael? Inflation, right? We just got our CPI numbers in.
Yeah. Well, so they tell a mixed story, the inflation numbers. So
let's unwrap it.
So inflation year over year, 6%, which is the smallest increase since September 2021, which is really good, right? But the CPI did go up 1%. So while inflation did rise, it did rise at the lowest level since 2021. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag, but the market really was excited about it. And that does help real estate, right? Because if the government feels like it's getting inflation somewhat under control, right, that translates into the pace of rising rates and just overall economic confidence. And the more economic confidence we have, even at higher rates, the more stability we have, the more people can understand what's going to happen, what's going on, how do we get through these things, and it makes, that extremely fast rising rate environment calms it down a little bit, tempers it, allows time for the economy to catch up in different places, right? Mm-hmm. Housing, we're a real estate podcast, right? Housing gets to come back online, rates get to feel stable, buyers get to say, hey, if I'm going to buy a house, this is kind of where I'm going to be. That stability is key to the economy in general. Things racing up and things racing down, that's the stuff that spooks people the most. So.
Yeah, and you were asking me what I thought was going to be a big thing in 2023. We were talking about balance, homeostasis, and inflation was at its peak last year. Last June was at 9.1%. Where right now, if you look at our core inflation, so that's a measure that excludes volatile food and energy prices. It's your most accurate inflation metric. It's 5.5% right now. So we're basically at 6%. But we've been at 6% for a little while now. So it looks like if you look at it on the surface, inflation is down from last year, but it's still up, where obviously with the raising Fed rates, if you look at the rates that have gone up, they're trying to get it down to hopefully to 2%. I think we're in somewhat of a stable position. You actually did you see the numbers with mortgage rates just recently? Literally as recent, hot off the press, in the last 5 days.
Yeah, they're in the mid sixes.
They dropped a little bit.
Yeah.
So I have some really cool data for you.
Down from the sevens where they were
a
couple weeks ago.
This is hot off the press. So obviously today's Pi Day, but as of Monday night, the market was pricing in probability of a 1/4 point hike. So, we're going to find out.
It's definitely going to come minimum.
Yeah, but before Monday, before all this stuff happened this past weekend, they were looking at potentially a 40% chance of a a supercharged half point hike. So,
well, yeah, I mean, I think the Fed wants to be careful with the run on these couple of banks, right? They want to listen. They still need to bring inflation down. It's still too high, but they also want to have some more consumer confidence here, which is going to be important. So, a lot of that, I don't actually know that the inflationary numbers would have curbed the rise, but I think the inflationary numbers mixed with what happened with Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank, those are the things that are going to slow down some of those rate hikes as they try to get under control and have people feel confident about what's going on.
Yeah. So thank God for the FDIC, because like you were saying, it could have been real bad. And you were telling me about the Great Depression.
Yeah. I mean, before we had institutions that help protect your banking, like, why did things get really bad? You'd had run on the banks, and before the FDIC existed, you ran on the bank and bank didn't have the money. Like, that's it.
And
like, you don't have any money. It's done.
Yeah. And then the FDIC only insures up to $250,000 of all deposits for a individual or potentially.
Yeah, for a single deposit holder at a single bank.
Yeah. And you're saying that now any company that had used SVB as a banking institution.
Yeah. So the Fed came in, and the government came in. They said, even though that is the limit, they were going to make sure the debtors got whole. So they're working with the depositors, who had money in the banks to make sure they can access all their funds. Though the shareholders and the management of these banks they're done.
Okay. So that was definitely a lot over the last couple of days. And
something I want to bring up with our guest which is going to be really interesting as we get through the news here, is, real estate. And how does that factor into all these pieces? Those banking issues, the inflation issues, and all these pieces. Like, I think people are really scared. I think they're really scared about what's going on. They're nervous. It's hard to find deals. It's hard to find properties. You're trying to figure out, can you afford a house, and all these other pieces. And something I really want to dig into is flipping, like buying, doing what we do, people utilizing our services, going out there, buying houses, flipping houses, finding those deals, why it's so important right now. Why in this environment is doing those things really important?
Why is it so important?
Because real estate has been the number one wealth builder for almost all of time. Not really, but in the modern era, having, owning a home, owning property, building, look at so many of our clients build rental portfolios. Those things weather the storm. Real estate weathers all the storms. And I think that's something I really want to get into, because I think that's important to realize, like, when you're seeing all this stuff going on, like people buying crypto and hedging, and like, not to say people didn't make a lot of money in crypto. People made a crazy amount of money in crypto. And yeah, that's fast cash. And, we're seeing a lot of that crash right now, but real estate is the thing that's going to grow with you. It's something you're always going to have. For the most part, it appreciates. Yeah, we're going to have dips like we're having now in certain parts of the country. But that is something it's tried, it's true, it's gonna be there for you. It's always gonna be there for you. And especially when times are tough, like right now, I don't know, you turn on the TV, you read a newspaper, you go on the internet, everyone's like, buy T-bills, buy bonds, no, go back into stocks, it's up today. People are still telling you to buy crypto, do this, do that. Buying real estate is always gonna be the best thing.
Okay.
It's always gonna be the common denominator.
And we're seeing a lot of it right now. We see a lot of our investors, they're building their portfolios, they're buying rental properties. Even if they're not getting a ton of monthly cash flow, they're buying the properties because they're going to appreciate. It's almost a guarantee. Even the stock market, in a way, the stock market's obviously more volatile. But if you look at the stock market over the last 30 years, it's a straight line up. But some people don't have the stomach for the ups and downs of the stock market. The real estate market is so much more stable. It's a much more stable asset class. And I love the fact that it's tangible. Not just are you getting appreciation from the property, but you can be getting monthly cash flow. It can almost serve as an employee for you. So if you're a real estate investor and you own a business, which is you're owning real estate properties, that property can serve. That property's never going to call in sick. Hopefully your tenants make the payments.
Well, I think the important thing to remember is it's about fast cash, right? And it's about hard work. Every real estate investor out there knows that doing this in any way they're doing it, this is hard work. Finding properties, rehabilitating properties, being a landlord. Being a landlord is hard work. But the gains, the things you get from that are they're incredible. So what I want to do now is we're going to take a quick break. We're going to invite in our guest of honor.
Yeah, he's our first guest, Mike.
Our first guest, our shameless first guest, which is another Alpha Funding partner. That's what we're going to do. I feel shameless.
Yeah. Let's be shameless.
We're going to be shameless. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to bring Mark Callazzo in. We're going to hear what he has to say about everything. We're going to hear a little bit about him. And then we're gonna take that and see where he brings us.
Yeah, I have a lot that I want to go over with Mark.
There might not be enough time. Welcome back to the Mike and Matt Show. I'm Mike Strasser from Alpha Funding. I'm here with Matt. Want to introduce our guest, as I mentioned before the break, our shameless first guest on Alpha Funding, a partner of Alpha Funding, Mark Callazzo. Welcome.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
I'm
the man that needs no introduction, but I want a big introduction.
You're
Mikey.
the man who needs no introduction.
Tell the world how great I am.
You're a man who needs no introduction that we brought you on episode 2.
All right.
Yeah.
I hear in some walks of life, his nickname is Mr. Big Deal.
Mr. Episode 2. That's what we're going to call him from now on.
Mr. Episode
2. So Mark, founder of Alpha Funding back in 2007, just celebrated 15 years of Alpha.
That's right.
He's also a serial entrepreneur.
Yes.
He's, I don't even know if I have enough fingers to count the amount of businesses he's had. No, you can't do it.
Yeah.
Try as hard as you want, but you can't.
So founded Alpha Funding right before the great financial collapse, and now we're maybe stumbling into a baby financial collapse right now. So 15 years later.
That's a great segue. We were just talking about.
Way to hop right into it.
No, I like that. We were just talking about before the break. We were saying, we were looking at what was going on with these banks that went into receivership by the FDIC. We're looking at inflation still in a weird place.
Can I ask a technical question? Am I supposed to look at Mikey, Flat Mikey, Matt, or the camera?
You can look at whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to look at here.
It's okay.
Matt's sneakers.
Yeah.
Flat Mikey's always smiling.
Flat Mikey is always
so
smiling.
You can look there.
You got some very red cheeks there.
Yeah. I have a little surprise that I want to share with everybody. This is our first guest here at the Mike and Matt Show, and I have a beautiful bottle of wine. I don't know if the camera can see this.
This makes for great radio, by the way.
Yeah.
This is a Matthew Wallace Cabernet. It's a beautiful bottle
of wine. No relation to you.
No, it's not. No relation to me. It's a Stag's Leap. We're going to open it up and we'll do a little quick
There's nothing
taste.
like great radio except for saying, can you see this?
Oh, yeah.
Make sure
we're a video here.
Subscribe to us on
Not
YouTube.
everybody's on video.
If you follow us on YouTube, you can watch the video.
YouTube or Spotify, we have video. But Mark, I want to get back to what you're saying, because we were talking about the failing of these banks. People are really scared. We're looking at CPI. We're looking at rates going up, continued raises. And you were just talking about how you founded Alpha right before the last financial collapse. Why is companies like Alpha, why is the industry, and why are they even more important when we're in harder financial times than when we're in better financial times?
Well, there's always a need for non-bank lenders. Obviously, banks are limited with what they can do from a regulatory standpoint, from a capital standpoint, from a shareholder standpoint. And non-bank lenders like us and all the other ones have flexibility and the ability to step in and do loans that traditional banks can't. So there's always a place for us.
So with that, so to the borrower, to our clients, to people borrowing the money, why do they want to be in this environment, buying houses, flipping, getting rentals? To me, I think I was just saying before the break, real estate is the thing that weathers all storms. Yeah. But I think people are nervous right now looking at where the economy is. Hard to find deals, which it was like this before. Deals weren't always plentiful. Why now? Why should people be getting in?
Well, I think distress and a crazy volatile market that we're in is always going to create opportunities. So I think all of the rehabbers and investors out there right now are going to see a ton of opportunities in the next 6, 8, 10, 12 months.
Right. And would you say it's important to realize that even when times are hard now, those are when the biggest gains come?
Absolutely. Yeah. The pain times are when all the money's made. I mean, you look back at all the people that made all the money during the great financial crisis and right after the great financial crisis. I mean, that's when the big institutional players came in and just started buying single family homes. They bought up every house they could buy in 08, 09, 010, 10. And you know, made a killing on them, and they just saw opportunity. So the people that are going to do well in the next 5 years are the people that are well capitalized and have the balls to jump in right now, because you're going to get paid down the road from that.
So we're seeing a retreat of institutional finance during this time. Do you see them coming back in?
Absolutely.
When all this turns around again?
Yes, I think a lot of the institutional finance, especially from the bigger banks and lending institutions, they have a lot of, you know, fires that they can put their money, you know? So it's like when we used to work with a hedge fund, I won't mention their name, we were competing, we wanted their dollars in the real estate space. The guy that financed cargo ships wanted the money there. The guy that financed Puerto Rican bonds, which was a bad idea for them, wanted the money there. The guy that wanted to put the money in equities wanted the money there. So they were just a pure capital allocator. So they were looking at, oh, sorry, Mikey.
It's okay.
They were looking at all of those diverse opportunities and saying, we think there's better opportunity in Puerto Rican bonds right now than in real estate bridge loans. And that's what a lot of the institutions and banks are doing right now, and either allocating somewhere else or sitting on the sidelines, but they will be back.
Yeah. And, you know, I think what I hear a lot of borrowers telling us it's hard to find good deals.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily know if that's true. I think a good deal is always a good deal. I think people are looking at good deals in the lens of kind of the last, more so before COVID than during COVID. COVID, we saw everything starting to go crazy, but low rate environments, easy money. I think people look at good deals through that lens. And before all of that happened, it looked a lot like it did today. And good deals are good deals, right? They're always good deals.
I think everybody got a little bit like Goldilocks in the last 5 years. And it was, hey, I can buy it okay, and I can still screw up my rehab a little bit because the prices are going to be 15% higher a year from now. So that's always going to help me out. And that's not here right now. So it's almost like you have to go back to the fundamentals of what this business is. You have to buy right. You have to make sure you control your rehab costs, and you have to sell it quickly. And that's why some people say, well, there are no good deals, but maybe there are no deals for stupid people, kind of.
Yes, that was.
But there's always deals for the smart operator who can buy right, execute on the business plan, do it quickly, and sell it out.
Right, and also that have tighter profits, right? Like, you know, maybe you're not looking
make as much money.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean those deals shouldn't get done.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
So this is definitely going to test what type of an operator you are. If you're a strong operator, you can still get deals done. And what you just said, you know, buying right, making sure that you control your rehab costs, and also get in and out of the project quickly. What he just said to you is gold. It's so simplistic, but it's not a complicated business what we're in. Obviously, we're in a relationship business, managing your team, managing all of your subs, but at the end of the day, it's simple. Get in and out quickly, buy it right, and then obviously...
You know, I watch the flipping shows like everybody else, and some of them at the end they always say, you know, I bought it for $220 and I put $52,000 into it, and I sold it for $350 with X, you know, amount of profit. They rarely say, here was my carry cost. Sometimes they'll say closing costs and things like that, but they never say, shit, I held on to this thing for 12 months and sucked it on the carry. So
I have a great question, because what you just brought up was gold again. So there's going to be a lot of nuggets that he's going to
2 times the gold today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just walking gold.
So he was talking about holding costs. What are some other costs? If you're a newer investor, you're just getting started. Everyone always thinks about closing costs, your holding costs. What are some other costs that are hidden in a deal?
Or even pull that out a little bit, right? Maybe be a little less specific. What do you think, in your experience, you were just talking about holding costs, people not thinking about it. What are the things that maybe the newer investor, because you've more than even I have, you've worked with the newer investor long before I ever came to Alpha. What do they miss the most that you think tanks a deal?
Well, I always say the biggest risk from either a lender or the rehabber, because our interests are aligned, was day 1 through day 10 of the project. Because, that's when you go in there and you do the demo, and that's when you have your holy shit moment, like, wow, I didn't know we were going to have to redo all the electric, or I didn't know all the plumbing was bad, or I didn't know the framing was so messed up that it's this. And now I have to spend extra here, extra here, extra here. And the professional says, all right, I'm going to put my big boy pants on. I'm going to do the electric. I'm going to do whatever. I'm going to get it done. The amateur or the beginner, like sometimes I said, Mikey, I feel like they get overwhelmed and they crawl in a ball and cry. It's like that's why I don't want to fly with an amateur pilot, right? Because I have a bunch of friends that have pilot licenses, right? And if the engine stops, right?
They don't know what to do.
I know Captain Sully Sullenberger isn't going to start crying and be like, what do I do? The engine stopped. You know what I mean? He's going to land it in the freaking water. But the guy that's like only has a couple hours, he's up there. He's like, what if he starts crying and I got to take the wheel?
So
that's what I think some of the beginners have. Like they just have to say, I have to get it done. And I'll give John Steingraber a shameless plug here. His get it done in 24 hours, which I'm sure there's a lot of TV in there. I'm sure it's not all getting done in 24 hours. But the point is, I'm getting it done fast, and my carry is from here to here instead of from here to here. And that's where the savings is.
And that's what he talks about.
Yeah.
That doing it, that's what makes him the money.
Yeah.
So
he still hasn't given me a shout out yet. So
I'm sure it's coming.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure after this episode.
Well, not a shout out. Hold on. Let's go back. 2 problems with John Steingraber today. 1, no shout out. 2, no invite to the screening.
Oh.
I met John when he was like almost a little kid running his first networking thing.
Right? Because he started his first.
It was
NJ
John
resident.
and Randy. I don't know if you guys ever even met Randy. John had a partner with the networking things at the time.
I think I met Randy later on when he came back to it.
Yeah, Randy came back for a little bit.
I mean shots. I don't know if that's shots fired, but I wouldn't call it shots fired. I mean,
Mark,
If he wins, what do you win with that? An
Emmy?
Oscar, an Emmy?
Emmy?
All right, if he wins an Emmy, I want to get invited to the party.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure that he would make that happen.
All right.
when did you start Alpha Funding? If you can just let the audience know, how did Alpha Funding start?
So I have a company called RMS Title and Appraisal, and all of our customers were either mortgage brokers or mortgage bankers and realtors and lawyers. And I had a mortgage broker come to me with a deal, and this was in 2006. And he said, hey, I've got this builder, and he owns the land free and clear, and he needed, I think it was $150,000 to build a house, and it was a spec house, and he was going to sell it. And he said, you guys already did the appraisal. Here's the address. So I look it up, and I said, yeah, the house was worth like $3 and change when it was done. So he said to me, how about you put up $75,000, I'll put up $75,000. And at the time, this guy was willing to pay 15% and 5 points. And I was like, holy shit, it's a great return on my money. Yeah. So I put up 75, the broker put up 75, the guy built the house. I think it was 9 months took him to build the house, 2 months to sell it. We was in and out in less than a year. And I got this great return on my money. And it was kind of exciting. So I was like, hey, if you have any more of these, let's do more. And he brought one, and I was like, I have all these mortgage brokers that are clients. Maybe I should start telling them I've got some extra money. So I started telling the brokers that I had good relationships with, hey, if you have something that needs some, and this was true private money. It was just me writing a check. And I started funding more and funding more and funding more. And next thing you know, I run out of money. So I was friends with David. We had actually done a couple real estate deals together, but never worked together more than that. And I'm talking to him, and I said, I started funding these deals, and I'm out of money. And he goes, oh, well, maybe I'll put some money into it. So David started putting some money into it. And then David said, well, maybe I can raise some capital for this, and we can kind of make it into a business. And next thing you know, that's how Alpha was formed.
I mean, 15-5 is a great business.
15-5 is a great business.
I think if I said 15-5 to a borrower today,
yeah,
one, I don't know if they would say words to me that I've never heard faster, or they'd hang up on me faster.
Yeah, I was gonna say they would either hang up or you'd hear someone falling on the ground.
So 15-5 was the first deal, and I think we did a couple at that, and then we kind of settled in at 14-4, and I think this is before you even joined, Mikey. I was toying around with the idea of getting 14-4 tattooed on my arm. I was like, that's how much I love this business.
I wasn't around for that.
Yeah, and then thankfully not, because then I would have had to cross it out and 12-3, and then I'd be all the way down to here, and I'd have 8-2, and then we'd have to go back up now.
8-1.
Maybe we can use like tattoo laser removal.
Yeah,
you could have modded that a little bit. Here's a question that everybody always asks me: what's the fascination with numbers that match? 12-2, 14-4, 15-5. Can you explain it?
No.
I just say it's just because that's the way people felt.
Yeah.
I think it's just
felt like it was
it's
a good
comfort.
It felt good.
Yeah.
I think it's just comfort. People like numbers. Like when I control my volume on the TV, I am always on an even number.
Really?
I can never turn the volume in.
We're learning a lot.
Yeah,
about
Maddie's
that right
OCD
now.
is coming out.
Yeah,
We're learning a lot. So you mentioned something where you said that you did some deals yourself before you started lending. And so I know we're going to go back. We were just talking about borrowers. Like, do you have a moment where you were that borrower in either of the scenarios that you brought up before, where you opened up some walls and you're like, holy shit?
Yes.
Or anything like that?
Had that problem, had problems with permitting where we thought we were going to get a permit for one thing, and then they were requiring a lot of additional work, and that's why you have to build some contingency into all of your numbers too, because it's almost never going to go as planned. You're never going to open up the walls and be like, oh, there's $10,000 in here for me to do the drywall with.
Right. And you never walked away from that. You saw those challenges and you just, obviously you kept going. You're here now.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important thing I want people to think about, right? Like, you have somebody like Mark who's now been in real estate, forget just lending or flipping or whatever, for more than 20 years?
Yeah.
More than 25 years?
Yeah.
More than that? More than 30 years?
Well, I started in the appraisal business when I was 21. So 30 years. Wow.
30 years.
Wow, I was almost going to call myself 41 there.
I was a small child.
Yeah.
Yeah, really quickly, Mark, when you were in college, you went to Kane University, right?
Yeah.
Were you always thinking real estate? When, many kids, they go to college, usually they don't have a plan. Some do.
I always knew I wanted to be in real estate.
Okay.
I never thought I could be on the brokerage and selling side of that, and that's kind of how I settled into the appraisal side.
But I think all of that is just important, right? All of the thoughts that you're saying. It's like, it's important for people to understand that you're somebody who got all this way, and you faced all the same adversities, and you also faced the same economic adversity also. You were buying and selling houses. You were flipping them. You were doing the construction. You're running into all the same problems. These problems aren't new problems.
Yeah.
You then walked into a financial crisis, found opportunity in a financial crisis, started a company that 15 years later is still doing business. I think it's important for people to hear that, because I think everybody always looks at their moment in time and saying, I'm living in the worst moment in time. And I think when we see all of these things, it's important to say, hey, this is a not great moment.
Yeah.
But there's opportunity. And you have to seek out those opportunities and say, I can't be afraid of doing something or seeking opportunities when things are tough, or when things go wrong, knowing that they went wrong, but you still got to keep going.
Every year I kind of think about where I'm going to go the next year or 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. And every year I say to myself, I'm going to make more money in the next 5 years than I've made my entire life. And it's been pretty close to true. Like I've just been, you're smarter, you have more capital, you're more seasoned, and I think you just recognize opportunities, and it's really recognizing opportunity and having the capital and the balls to pull the trigger on it. That's really all you need to be successful in this business. Everything else you can kind of work on, but that's the two big things.
So seeking opportunity and capitalizing on opportunity. Can you tell the audience a little bit about some of your ventures? You have obviously your development. You built up Tennessee Avenue. If you could tell everyone more about that.
Tennessee Avenue has been my pet project, and I would not recommend it to anybody. So,
well, tell us where it is, what it is. Matt didn't tell us enough here. What is Tennessee Avenue? Why is it important to you?
So I owned a restaurant in Atlantic City. It was called the Iron Room, and it was always my baby. It was a small 50-seat, small plate restaurant with great cocktails and amazing wine list. And one night I was there with the hedge fund that we were referring to. Place closed, staff came out, they were all having a shift drink. We were still there drinking wine. And we were asking the staff where they all live, because I didn't know where they all lived. And we're all in real estate, so we're always curious. Where do you live? What do you pay? Do you rent? Do you own? All the staff were in their 20s and early 30s, and none of them lived in Atlantic City. And I was kind of shocked. And I said, well, why would you not want to live in Atlantic City? It has everything. And they go, it really has nothing. And I said, well, what do you mean? And they said, there's no walkability. There's no concentration of amenities. There's no central business district. There's no place where I can go for coffee in the morning and walk across the street and get yoga and go to a bar at night and hop to the next bar and have, my last cocktail at this other place. And I said, I guess you're right, because my idea of everything was I would go to a good restaurant and have a bottle of wine, and I'd go home and watch the Golf Channel. So that was kind of why I thought Atlantic City had everything. So that night I went home, and instead of watching the Golf Channel, I went on the MLS and LoopNet and was trying to see where can Atlantic City's Main Street be, and what's for sale, and what would make the most sense. And I said, Atlantic Avenue and Pacific Avenue run the entire length of the city. They're 48 blocks long each. And I said, that's way above anything I could consider doing. I said, but there are beach blocks that could be Atlantic City's Main Street. And Tennessee Avenue already had the Piccadilly, which is kind of like Atlantic City's dive bar. And the next block over was Irish Pub, which is an institution, it's been there 50 years now. And there was a lot of vacant land, and it was probably one of the worst streets in the city. So I said, I'm just going to start buying buildings and land, and I'm going to turn this into Atlantic City's Main Street. So I bought, I think at the time, 9 buildings and land, and I said, okay, this is enough to get started now. So now I was like, all right, I have to find tenants, because I didn't want to be an operator. I just wanted to build you out a restaurant and you pay me rent. I wanted a coffee shop, a yoga studio, like a beer garden type place, a finer dining type place, dessert places, tattoo shop, like barber shop. These were the things I wanted. So first meeting I had with a potential tenant was with a tattoo guy who had this really cool tattoo shop offshore. And he was a big guy, like a lot bigger than me. And he was bald. And I swear to you, he had Loco tattooed on his forehead.
Okay.
And I'm walking him through, and I'm giving him my vision for everything. And I thought he was kind of liking everything.
Right.
And he goes, bro, just, I like your vision. He goes, but this isn't for me. And I go, why not? He goes, this block is too scary for me. So I was like, holy shit. So I go home and
and now you've bought all of this.
I bought everything already.
And now this guy is coming to you and he's saying, it's a little scary for me here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I go home and I pour myself a whiskey, and my wife and kids were there, and they're like, what's wrong? And I go, Loco thinks it's too scary for him. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to sell everything, take a loss, and move on. And this was a really dumb idea, and this is why I shouldn't try to buy stuff when I have a bottle of wine in me. But the next day, I had a meeting with people from a yoga studio. Mm-hmm. And I was like, do I cancel it? Do I keep it? I'm like, if Loco doesn't want to go, the girls in yoga pants aren't going to want to go. But I kept it, and I walked them through, and they loved it. And they're like, we want to join. And I was like, holy shit. And I'm like, I want to call Loco and be like, Mrs. and Mrs. Lululemon are good, and you're not. So they came on, and then we had some other tenants come on. We had some restaurateurs that I ended up partnering with, and then other developers came in, and people that wanted to buy houses just to make them Airbnb. And at last count, there's been $40 million invested in that little 3-block area since 2016. And it was all because I drank too much wine one night and thought I could make a Main Street. So
the moral of the story is, to everybody listening, if you're in you want to do something real estate, even if you've had a bottle of wine in you and you think you have a crazy idea, you can still make it.
yeah, you can.
That's words to live by.
It's been a labor of love. So when are we going to get to the wine?
Yeah,
I'm drinking it already.
You've been drinking it already?
I think we should. Yeah, well, cheers to Mark.
Yeah.
Well, cheers to opportunity.
All right.
Definitely want to cheers to Mark, because without Mark, he's
Yeah.
one half of the.
Mikey would be working on like TV somewhere. He'd be like Jimmy Fallon's producer or something right now.
I kind of am.
Well, like real TV, like
And then I'd be personal training.
yeah, Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible. No, I think it's interesting. I mean, I think it's also interesting just the different walks of life we all come from to do it, and how you end up doing what you do. Like, you started the appraisal company, you're out of college. You were buying and selling houses. Then you started lending money, right? Then you start a lending money company.
Yeah.
Then you bought restaurants. You sold restaurants. You bought an entire block. Like, the life story. And I think that's actually, I think goes all the way back to something we said in the beginning of the show about real estate, about why, we're talking about banks. We're talking about all this stuff. Stories like this, I think, bring me all the way back, because you're saying to yourself, why real estate? Is because real estate is the gateway to all of these things. If you never got into an adjacent real estate field, appraisals, you never would have bought anything. You never would have fixed anything. You never would have been a lender. You never would have done any of these things. And I think, like, real estate is the common denominator for wealth generation, especially in this country.
Absolutely.
I said it before you came on.
You own your own business or you own real estate, and that's where most people make their money.
Right. It's like, that's what we were saying. You can play in the stock market. You can buy bonds. You can invest in mutual funds. You can do all this other crazy stuff. I'm not saying not to work hard at your job and do what you do, but if you want to make something more, if you want security, you want wealth, you want those things, it's in real estate. And it always has been.
Yep.
I always get tripped up because everybody hates that I say this line all the time. And I think it's a Will Rogers line where he says the only thing they don't make more of is real estate. Like, we're sitting in our headquarters right now in Red Bank. This piece of land, you can't double this piece of land. It just is what it is. And I think, that's it. And real estate is accessible to everybody.
It is.
I as an underwriter for Alpha, long time ago when Mark brought me in with David, people do these deals with not a lot of money. They go to their friends, they go to their family, they find it, they figure it out, and they get wealth.
Mikey, and Matt, since you guys have been here, has anybody ever come to us with an amazing deal that we have not been able to fund?
No.
And that's because if you have an amazing deal, there's always money out there for it. There's always more capital than deals. So
yeah, I mean, and I think
you guys are passing notes over there. Are you reminding them to mention the swag? Is that it?
Well,
Shameless plug.
Yeah.
I mean, we already shameless plug
Fund
Tennessee
the
Avenue.
loan between now and April 1st and get a free T-shirt.
I don't know. What did Mark just commit us to?
Yeah.
I don't know.
A lot of T-shirts.
I do have a couple questions for you, Mark, because I know that
Pair
the
of blue
audience
Nikes.
maybe.
Yeah.
So, do you have a wine vault? I'm saying this as if I don't know.
Yeah.
But, so
we're going there.
So, Tell us more about the wine
So
vault.
the office where my title company is in an old bank, and it was coincidentally First National Bank of Toms River that went out of business. That was in the crash in the 86, 87. I'm not sure when they went under. So we bought that building and, turned it into the office. But this vault was literally, what is it, like 1.5 foot of concrete all the way around?
Yeah, and a
big steel door, like
9 inches steel door or something.
Yeah. So I was like, well, what else are we going to do with this? I'll turn it into a wine cellar. So built a 1,700 bottle wine cellar. I think I have about 12 or 1,300 bottles.
That was the first 3 years of my life at Alpha, was watching him build the wine cellar.
Yeah.
It is incredible. If anyone has never seen it, it's exactly what you would think.
And
a giant vault with a bunch of wine in it.
Of those 1,200 bottles, 400 of them are 2010 Barolos, which I said I'm going to start drinking them when they're 20 years old. And that seemed so far away, 2030 back in 2010. But now, I mean, we're not that far away. So I'll be, it'll be like, hey, it's just a random Tuesday night. Let's have a 20-year-old Barolo.
If you have that many of them.
Yeah.
I also have another question for you.
Matt's got more here. Matt's the color man.
So
Yeah.
Mark is an avid golfer. Mark and I, we've played many, many rounds, and I look forward to soon playing as the weather starts to warm up. Mark obviously couldn't even help himself in the last couple of weeks. He was out there on the course, but
I got out twice. Was it last week?
yeah.
I got out twice last week. Yeah.
I want to know, for all of our listeners, what is your club, your number one, your favorite club in your golf bag?
8-iron.
Boom.
It's good to be the boss.
Okay.
Right? It's good
Yeah.
to have done this for 25 years.
Yeah.
I was going to say, my favorite club is the 9-iron. Mike, what's your favorite club in your bag?
My favorite club is the one I
putter?
actually get to use.
Yeah. It's not the driver.
I gotta get out of here in order to go do it. It's
Yeah.
definitely not the driver. Let me tell you that much. It's
All
definitely.
right, so how do we end? Do we sing a song?
Well,
do
no,
I get
I have one
invited
more.
back?
I have
Is
one
it-
more. I have one more question
Oh.
for you.
Yeah, all
So
right.
I also want to know if you've done a lot in your life. If you could come back in a second life,
Yeah.
you could do anything you wanted. Now, as you start, you just turned 50.
Yeah.
If you could come back in a second
way
life,
to
what would
just
you
out
do?
him. By the way, I'm sure
I
that's what he wanted.
I
to
would
know.
go into the music business, and I would go find young Lindsay Lohan and young Jennifer Love Hewitt and young Kate Gosselin and sign them to a long-term girl band rock contract.
Okay.
And I would be their manager, and that's what I would do.
That's not where I felt like that was going.
No.
But it's okay. That's where it went, which is good. It's good.
But no, I'll say this. The one thing I look back at in life and say, would I do it differently, is I went to a mediocre at best college. And if I had to go back in time, I would either not go to college.
Okay.
And I would be 4 years ahead of time. Or I would have tried to study a little harder in high school because I never even took my books home. And try to go to like Harvard or West Point or Yale, where you walk out and you have this network of people that you can really have a foundation to build things on. Because I kind of think I'm the most successful person in my graduating class at Kane.
I mean, we'll end on that. I think that's important to people who are going back and forth about school. That's the thing that people don't talk enough about, is that you go to school obviously to learn whatever you want to do, but it's about the people you meet.
Yeah.
Right? Like your partner at the appraisal company.
He was my roommate in college. Yeah.
And how many stories do we hear about that in industry, right? It's people you met in college that you're doing stuff with now. So I think that's actually really great. Mark, I want to thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I know we made you drive a long distance.
That's all right. I'll come back for another episode.
I mean, it's not like you work here.
Yeah.
Sometimes
I work here. I was here yesterday.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, to have you back, it's not like you work here.
2 days
it's really
in a row
difficult.
this week.
Well, we want to thank everybody for listening to this episode.
We do have some announcements.
Oh, wait.
Mike.
What happened?
big
What did I miss?
Yeah,
What did I miss?
We do have some announcements.
What?
We are actually going to be on the Weekly Juice podcast on
Oh, that's
the
right.
28th. So if you, well, first off, I think we should also talk about it, where
Wait,
you
wait,
can
wait,
find
wait.
us.
He's Jewish, but you're not.
What does that have to do with it?
Oh, I thought he said the Weekly Jews podcast.
The Weekly Juice.
Oh,
Juice.
I was going to say.
I have to work on my enunciation.
All right.
Like,
Sorry.
Weekly Juice.
I don't even know if Matt's circumcised.
But we have Ryan and Corey from the Weekly Juice. We're going to be on their podcast on the 28th. Mike and I are very, very excited. You'll see that soon. Definitely take a look for them on social media. Also,
where else can you find us?
You can
Matt?
find us on all podcast platforms. If you go on our Instagram, it's the Mike and Matt Show without the Mike and Matt Show.
Check out Matt's OnlyFans if you want to find out if he's circumcised or not.
And you can listen to us on all platforms. Spotify, if you want to watch the video, you can check us out on YouTube. But Mark, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being with us, Mark. We're really happy to have you. Are we anywhere else this month?
Yes.
For anybody else wants to see us, you almost forgot about that. I just want to make sure
we have on April 4th. There's the NAREP. We were talking about NAREP. I mixed up the names. You have the Latino Chamber of Commerce. We will be there on the 23rd this month, but also on April 4th, NAREP is doing their installation gala. That's their Somerset chapter. We're going to be up in the Brownstone. It's a beautiful venue up in Patterson, New Jersey. I think we'll be on the road soon, so hopefully our next episode we'll be talking about some of the upcoming industry events where you can find Alpha and other team members, but those are where we are for now.
In addition to all the podcast places, you can always find us at alphafunding.com, alpha_funding on Instagram. You can call the office, email us if you have questions, anything like that. We're always happy to talk about anything real estate, especially if you want to borrow some money. We're happy to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
And thanks, everybody. We'll see you on episode 3.